Many people are of the opinion that there is no real benefit in teaching history as it happened in the past. Many people believe it's better to concentrate in the present or in the future. So what's your opinion about it? Is it important to teach history or not?
So, before focusing on the future of humankind or whatever, we should first think about where are we coming to this present time, right? So, like, even as a child, when we used, so basically the question is that if we are not applying any part of history to our present, then why do we even need to study about it? Like, we used to, even when I was a child, I used to ask, like, "Arey, calculus क्यों पढ़ना है," right? So yeah, science क्यों पढ़नी है if I'm not going to use it in my daily routine life? So, and same question used to be there for history as well. But what we don't realize is that history is something which we are highly dependent on, and it's part of our daily life. So, in a way, your present is based on the choices that you have made in history, and your future is also dependent on that. So, if your history as a person defines your identity, basically. So, as a child, when you were born, you collected some information, like you had a date of birth certificate, you collected photographs of yourself. All that is part of your identity. So that history is a part of your own identity. Likewise, whatever happened to a community is also part of their identity, right? So community's history defines community's identity, just like a person's history defines the person's identity. So I think the main reason why we need to uh, kind of study history is that we need to know what happened to us as a community, and from based on that we can look into future and how we should take things forward. So that would be the key reason to study history.
But like subjects like science, maths, economics, and business are essential to teaching students because it helps them to get good jobs. But teaching history is a waste of time in terms of just getting jobs because vast majority of people won't really use it in their work lives.
So even as a child, we used to ask, like, why do we have to study a particular subject, say science, maths, or history, if it's of no use to us in our daily lives? But what we don't realize is that history is something which we are highly dependent on. So the basic definition of history would be that it is the study of past events. And to record past events in a way is the inherent nature of humankind. Say when you're born, your date of birth is documented, and then this piece of document is used throughout your life. You click photos of the time you traveled, graduated, got married, etc. So by looking at these evidences, a third person could actually learn a lot about your identity. So your present identity is basically a collection of your past experiences. So your history defines your present identity. And this can be extrapolated and can be said that a community's history defines the community's identity. And so there's another quote which basically says that he who controls the past controls the present and the future. So yes, it is important to know your history, but who is telling that history is equally important? Who is collecting the history? That is important. So there is a famous quote which goes like, till the time lion finds a story for themselves, the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. And in our case, the history is being told from a colonial perspective. That is the perspective that we as a society eventually believe our identity to be: a community of losers who were invaded, plundered for thousands of years with no resistance at all. But does that mean that there was no resistance, or was there any? So there was largely three kinds of resistance. The first form of resistance was by the Kshatriyas. For instance, Mukta of Kashmir, who defeated Arabs, Muhammad Ghori was defeated by the Chalukyans. In fact, between the Ghazni and Ghori, there was a huge gap of almost 200 years. Maratha ruled the Bharatvarsh for almost a century. The second form of resistance was from people like Shankaracharya, Swami Vivekanand, Dayanand Saraswati, who largely led the fight for Hindu Jagrati. And then there was this third form of resistance from the Brahmins of the time, which has largely been documented by Meenakshi Chen, who is a famous historian. And maybe you could look into her videos as well. So the main point is that what we essentially did after getting independent is that we gave the responsibility of our story to the government, which largely had a colonial mindset, and that is where we went wrong. So the history was being told by a colonial perspective, and there was no. The state was given the responsibility to educate Hindu kids about the lion's history. History that was taught was from a hunter's perspective. Therefore, it is imperative for the government of the day to appoint impartial historians who are grounded in our civilization and who are able to present a correct narrative of our history by putting aside all the falsehoods that had been perpetrated all this while.